Welcome to Hard Talk. I'm Sarah Montague. The UN, US and Europe all say they are worried about what's going on in Cambodia. More than a dozen opposition figures are in prison. The party's vice president hasn't left their headquarters in 4 months for fear of being arrested. And the opposition leader Sam Rainsy, my guest today, fled the country to avoid jail. They want to replace Prime Minister Hun Sen, who's been in power for more than 30 years and whom they claim has rigged past elections. They've threatened mass demonstrations if the intimidation continues. But can their leader make a difference to life in Cambodia when he's in self-imposed exile in Europe? Sam Rainsy, welcome to Hard Talk.
Thank you.
Do you want to see mass demonstrations across Cambodia?
No, it will be the last resort. We would prefer to engage in negotiation with the government in order to reach a peaceful resolution to the current crisis.
And when do you decide that you've reached the last resort?
When our parliamentarians are kept in jail, more are arrested, more intimidation, more threat, and possibly more killings.
So we're not there yet, but you are at the moment boycotting the National Assembly. There has been some suggestion you will go back. Is the boycott over?
No, as long as our parliamentary immunity is not respected, I'm talking about National Assembly members from the opposition, as long as even our physical security is not guaranteed, it will be very difficult for us to resume our normal work.
So the boycott of the National Assembly continues, regardless of what some people have said, not least some of your own senior members of your party. Son Chai said that the CNPR would return to the Assembly to promote dialogue with the government.
We keep some kind of dialogue, even though it is rather fruitless dialogue. But we continue to meet at the level of technical committees, but not at the plenary sessions.
So the boycott continues. Nobody in your party is arguing that you should go back into the National Assembly?
Yes, when it comes to plenary sessions of the National Assembly, we are not going to take part as long as there is no comprehensive solution to the crisis.
But you will know that Hun Sen, Prime Minister, has said of the demonstrations, you can never threaten us with the demonstrations. If I ever enter into such negotiations, I will be nothing short of a dog. And he makes the point that the only venue for talks is the National Assembly, but since you've walked away, there's nowhere else to meet.
Yes, but in the past, when we were at the National Assembly, he did not do anything to help us to fulfill our duty as elected members of the National Assembly. On the contrary, he let his henchmen attack us, beat us. Some have been sent to hospital, and he also create politically motivated charges to arrest a National Assembly member, a senator, and threatening many others of arrested.
OK, so you're not taking part in the National Assembly. You're not calling for mass demonstration. What changes?
We look forward to the next elections, regional or local election next year, and national election the following year. This is the only chance for Cambodia to achieve a democratic transition. So we just call for all friends of Cambodia to support the democratic process, meaning the holding of free and fair elections in 1 to 2 years.
You, though, went to Tunisia a couple of years ago to study their revolution, and you described it as an inspiration for the whole world, especially countries under dictatorship such as Cambodia, awaiting a lotus revolution with the same historical results. Have you changed your mind about that?
No, I still believe in a peaceful solution to the crisis, and I still believe that in the end, the will of the people will prevail. because in Tunisia, in Cambodia, in many parts of the world, we have the same ingredients for a peaceful change because the population is very young.
Okay, but what happened in Tunisia was a revolution, not waiting for elections for a change of power.
Because there were no election in Tunisia at that time. But in Cambodia, we have the chance to take part in elections in the very near future. So this is a real and rare opportunity.
So you're confident, are you, that as a result of the reforms that the Prime Minister has undertaken of the electoral rules, the elections next year and the year after will be fair?
It will be better than the previous elections. In 2013, in spite of massive irregularities, the opposition came neck to neck with the ruling party. But this time, with the formation of a new electoral commission, more balanced in its composition and more credible, we believe that the election will be better, will be more credible. Therefore, it would lead to more credible results.
It's strange, though, because here you are, the leader of the opposition, and there are more than a dozen opposition figures who are in prison. We have the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights expressing concern about the escalating atmosphere of intimidation of opposition politicians, supporters, civil society and peaceful demonstrators. The US House Foreign Affairs Committee has approved a resolution calling for Hun Sen, the Prime Minister, to end harassment and intimidation. The European Parliament has adopted a resolution deploring the worsening climate for opposition politicians. And you are saying here it's going to be okay?
Yes, I am confident as much as Hun Sen is panicking. The prospect of free and fair election, better election next year and the following year make Hun Sen very afraid. It is why he is trying to derail the election process. He has adopted a strategy of violence, of provocation, in order for him to suspend or to postpone the election. On the contrary, the democratic opposition want that election to take place.
Yet here you are, the two of you, you have been leader of of various opposition parties for so long, for decades. He has been in power for decades. And many people look on and just say, nothing is changing. There's a political blogger, U Riti, who told us that for the past 20 years, Hun Sen has been the cat and Rainsy has been the mouse. It's an old game. It's time to become more strategic and break the cycle.
I think the world has changed. The Cambodian people has changed. The will of the people has changed. The Hun Sen regime that has been in power for more than 30 years has become more and more anachronistic. Hun Sen is the longest serving prime minister in the world, and his party has been in power for 37 years. All the young people, the young generation, since they were born less than 37 years ago, they have seen nothing else but Hun Sen and his ruling party, a former communist party. And many of the rulers are former Khmer Rouge. So the young people, they want something different. They compare Cambodia with neighboring countries, and they realize how backward Cambodia is because we have a leadership that is not suitable.
But you see, they haven't shown that they want you, because they could look at you and say you are of the same generation. And they haven't chosen you. Here you are sitting in exile, chosen to sit the other side of the world.
It is not a matter of person. It is a matter of system, of regime, of the society. People want to live in a different society, more just, more free. So I may be just the symbol of their aspiration for a period of time.
But they haven't voted for you. They voted for this same man, Hun Sen, who has overseen a politically stable country, rising incomes.
It depends how you look at the result. When I started the first opposition party in Cambodia, I was alone. Now I am the leader of a united democratic opposition. For the first time ever in Cambodia, we have a united democratic opposition, and we have nearly half of all the seats at the National Assembly. From zero, from scratch, we have reached half of the National Assembly in spite of the massive irregularities. If the election were a little bit better, definitely we would want an overwhelming majority.
You will know that the international observers from the International Conference of Asian Political Parties and the Centrist Asia Pacific Democrats International, who came to watch the elections, the former Speaker of the Philippines who was overseeing it said the election was free, fair and transparent and above all peaceful, non-violent and smooth.
Oh, there are many opinions. I think the predominant opinion of independent observers was that those elections were not representative of the Cambodian people.
But here you are the other side of the world. You are saying we are going to win, and here you're sitting here. Are you going to go back?
This is not my first exile.
It's your fourth.
It is my fourth exile from 1 year to 4 years. In spite of my being away from the country, the opposition continues to gain ground. As I just told you, from 1 seat, we got 55 seats now, nearly half.
But are you going to go back? Are you going to stay here?
I have a lot of colleagues who work on the spot. Even though my vice president is holed up in the party headquarters, but we have countless colleagues.
Indeed, but there are many people who look and speak favourably of him and wonder why you are here. Are you expecting a royal pardon? You've had one before. Are you expecting to get another one before the election?
This is not a matter of justice, of pardon. It is a matter of political will. When Hun Sen feels the pressure of the international community, because Cambodia depends on international assistance, then he will accept and he will push the king to pardon me. But without a political will, there will be no pardon from the king.
But are you expecting that to happen?
I expect a political resolution thanks to the pressure from the international community.
OK, we'll come back to what the international community can do in a minute. Will you go back without a royal pardon?
I consider last time I went back a few weeks before the election, even without a pardon.
So you will go back again without a royal pardon?
I am considering.
When you left the last time, when you chose to go into exile, the CPP spokesman, the governing party spokesman, Sok Aisan, said, in simple terms, he's a coward. How do you respond to that?
I think when you have to fight a dictatorship, you have to consider several options. What is important is the end result. All the options that I have chosen has led to an increase in the popular support for the opposition.
So you're doing more good here than there?
For the time being. But many people say that there is not only one Sam Rainsy. There are millions of Sam Rainsys all over Cambodia. This is the most important consideration.
But in your own autobiography, you wrote that any country would suffer from the forced absence of the leader of the opposition party.
I am now in France, but we all remember that when France were occupied, and there were freedom fighters who could not stay in France. General de Gaulle came to London for a few years to organize and to lead the resistance. And our former king, Norodom Sihanouk, went into exile. And thanks to his work abroad, he succeeded in pushing the international community to convene the International Peace Conference on Cambodia, leading to the Paris Peace Accords on Cambodia in 1991. And this was the solution to the Cambodian crisis.
Realistically, though, what difference are you making here? Because, as you say, it's different from your comparison with the Second World War in France, because you do have your colleagues, like your Vice President, Kem Sokha, who are back home in Cambodia. You are here. What difference are you making here with the international community?
I must not be paralyzed. If I am arrested, if I am prevented from doing anything, from saying anything, what can be this useful? While the modern technologies, I can be in touch with all my colleagues all over the country anytime, so I can organize the work of the opposition while remaining untouchable, because the current regime uses its judiciary just to eliminate the opposition. So why should we play that game? The real game is the international community, is international law, international treaty.
Sebastian Strangio, who's he's the author of the book Hun Sen's Cambodia, describes it as an increasingly a losing strategy, and he says that because, despite frequent expressions of concern by foreign governments, there are few signs they'll actively intervene in Cambodian affairs unless things get a great deal worse.
I think Cambodia has reached a critical point. because over the last few years, the situation has never been so tense. And this is the first time that we can see the international community speaking with one voice. Recently, 39 countries have condemned the Hun Sen regime and has called for the democratization process to be put back on track. But
realistically, what are they going to do? I mean, they don't do anything about other countries in the region who have far worse human rights records. So what are they going to actually do about Cambodia, apart from saying, could be better?
I think when they start to speak with one voice, they can do a lot more than before, because Cambodia depends heavily on international community. I mean international assistance, international loan, international markets. So Cambodia cannot ignore the will.
But so long as they carry on trading, and there are a huge amount of trade done between foreign countries and Cambodia, and you've called for a boycott of clothes or a restriction on the amount of clothes that are bought from Cambodia. But that would only hurt the workers, wouldn't it?
No, it is the trade unions who have asked the same thing, to put pressure on the buyer to improve the working conditions of the worker. So I call on the international community also to put pressure on the Cambodian government in all fields, on social field, economic field, to improve the living conditions and the human rights of the Cambodian people.
But that's not going to make any difference to the government.
You will see, because pressure is building up, and especially pressure for the holding of free and fair elections that Hun Sen wants to avoid.
But the international community looks at Cambodia and sees a politically stable country that is one of the fastest growing economies in Asia. It's been 7% last year, and which is typical of the last few years. Hundreds of thousands have been lifted out of poverty. Why would they intervene?
I think this is an out-of-date conception of stability. Before, you can have stability under a dictatorship. But now, I think the new definition of stability is a stability based on democracy and the respect of human rights. And second, the Cambodian population is mature enough now. They are determined. So what the opposition is calling for is just allow them to express their will freely and to have their will respected.
Okay. You say it's outdated, but the World Bank has said that Cambodia has exceeded the Millennium Development Goal targets, one of the best performers in poverty reduction worldwide.
This is a very superficial look at the situation. When you talk about economic growth, you should consider how is it sustainable and how is it equitable. The Cambodian growth is neither sustainable nor equitable.
Okay, but you must recognise that there were various things that you put forward, a 7-point plan at the last election, and this government has taken on many of those reforms and implemented.
You should look at the reports by Human Rights Watch, by Amnesty International, see how the human rights are violated, how a small group of people get richer and richer while the vast majority of the Cambodian people remain destitute.
Okay, so we get to the next election. Yeah. You say that through it will be fair enough for Hun Sen to be kicked out and for the opposition to be elected.
I think many things have to be put right in Cambodia. You should look at the report of Global Witness. It's based on London, and they have decried the massive deforestation.
Okay, but I'm asking you a different question.
Yes.
You are confident that the elections will come, that they will be fair, and that you will be elected?
They will be better because we have a better electoral commission.
And the outcome will be that Hun Sen is thrown out and you are elected?
The outcome will be there will be a democratic change.
And your party will be elected?
Possibly, but this is not the most important. The most important is to ensure a democratic change for Cambodia.
Hun Sen has warned of civil war if the opposition wins the next election.
All dictators warn of civil war, of catastrophe, if they are not kept into power.
The political analyst Uwe Rak, though, says that he's president of Future Forum, which is a policy research institute in Cambodia. And he said the pattern of politics in Cambodia, the way it works, the violence, bogus criminal charges on the one hand, exile protests, boycotts on the other side, your side, it's an obstacle to devising policy solutions to the worst of Cambodia's problems. And he said it's time for a changing of the guard on all sides. Is he right?
I think everything has an end. All dictatorships will end. after 37 years of the same ruling party, of the same dictatorship. I think the Cambodian people deserve a better leadership.
And it will end peacefully?
It will end peacefully. We will do our best to ensure that it will end peacefully. But the international community must help ensure that there is a peaceful and democratic election process.
Sam Rainsy, thank you for coming on Hard Talk.
Thank you.